Listen, let's get our conversation started. We've got a lot of um, great friends here on the line. We're not going to do introductions because of how many folks we have, but I am going to introduce you to my friend here in just a moment. Want to just let everybody know we created Practice Habits because there's a lot of administrators and colleagues of mine over the years who have done a really good job of mentoring me, people from industry as well. And maybe it's because I was from a worked in a rural area. And maybe it's just because it's the nature of the beast, but it's really hard to keep up on new ways to integrate high quality offerings for our patients. And our doctors do a really good job of coming back from meetings with a lot of ideas. And yet, we're not necessarily always equipped to implement them. And that includes all of it, how we look at our marketing, how we look at our operations. And today we're going to be talking about how we look at our finances. And we learned a lot at Vance Thompson Vision, where I grew up. I left there 3 years ago, kind of on our own, but with the help of others who we made calls out to. So Practice Habits was created to try to share what we've learned openly to try to raise the capabilities of the whole. So it's a free session. There's no sponsors, so we can say what we want. And today, I'm joined by one of my better friends in the field. We're talking with Mark Scharnberg, who is one of the only people that I work with professionally who also knew me in college. I pretty much work very hard to make sure none of those folks made it into this industry. But between he and Dr. Birdall, another one of our buddies, um, they pretty much can tell me whatever. They've got enough on me to ruin me. Let's just say that. But Mark, we're happy to have you on the team. We're talking about how to finish strong in Q4 and how to start 2026 uh, as optimally as possible. We've got some slides pulled together, but really this is a casual session, and we want people to either raise your hands or unmute and interrupt. We're recording this session so we can always share it on the Practice Habits website with your colleagues and friends. We're doing this every week with different topics, and so hopefully you all come back. And Mark, do you have control of or do you need control, or do you want me to push the slides?
I don't believe I have control.
So you're out of
Oh,
control? Did it start when I left?
yes, it is out of control now.
I was just setting you
Yeah,
up. Okay.
yeah.
Um, I don't know how to give you control.
Either way, I can share my screen too. I've got it up whatever way you want.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. That's perfect.
Okay.
While he's pulling that up, everybody, thanks for your patience. While he's pulling that up, um, Mark grew up in Iowa, just over the border of South Dakota. He is one heck of a CFO. Before here, he worked for a big health system in their health system owned insurance plan. Sanford Health is one of the largest growing health systems in the United States, and he was at the helm of their payer plan for their employees and has branched out to all the communities that are now in. Before that, he was the CFO for the largest senior care and services offering in the United States called Good Samaritan Society. And somehow he stayed friends with me. Um, he joined Vance Thompson Vision, ran cross country, by the way, at Augustana University, the Harvard of the Midwest, but since has become an ultra marathoner. He does these silly ones that are like 100 miles at a time, and he does it like happily. And so we're going to learn a lot from you today, Mark. And I just encourage everybody to really be liberal with your questions because one, I'll bet he has a good answer, and two, if he doesn't, we're all going to learn something together. And I know he's humble that way too. So, Mark, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing with us. And boy, Advanced Thompson Vision is better because you're on the team. I'm glad that we got to share, the same roof for a while.
Yeah, that was a generous introduction, Matt. Thank you. I am an introvert. What accountant isn't, and Matt isn't. So if you can go back, 25 years of picturing Matt Jensen, an 18-year-old, and a introverted accountant, 18-year-old, he was frighteningly outgoing and the life of the party. So uh,
What?
Yes. So it's been a blessing these last 3.5 years. Same as you, Matt. It was a blessing to spend the time that we did together. Yeah, and I'm happy to share some insights that we wrestle with. So I'll probably just jump right into it so we can not just get to Q&A, but to everybody can see screen here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd start with four numbers, and we're going to start with percentages. So an actual math problem dividing something by something, and 11%. Negative 11% is what our cataract surgeries are being cut by on the professional side in 2026. 3.3% is what cataract surgeries are increasing on the facility side. So as CMS has redistributed dollars on the professional side to take money away from ophthalmology, they've continued to invest on the ASC side. 50% growth in cataract surgeries, and this probably depends on what source you go to, but cataract surgeries are expected to grow by an estimated 50% by 2030. So if 4 million cataracts are being done today, 6 million are going to be done in 2030. And then 99%. I think people, if you're not familiar, when Alcon came out with the PanOptix trifocal IOL, in their study, 99% of patients would elect to have one again, compared to 91 or 90% of folks that had a monofocal. So we've got growing cuts in the wrong way. We've got cuts in the wrong way on the professional side, increases on the facility side. We've got a population of surgeries that's growing, and we've got patients that want advanced technologies. So it's kind of a mixed message. And when I think of practices, I think there's three options. One is do nothing. And that's not good because just naturally, with lower reimbursement, it's probably going to be, at least 20 to $50,000 of less revenue from cataract surgeries in 2026 compared to 25. You can do more of the same.
How much, Mark? I'm sorry.
My back of the napkin, depending on the size of the practice, 20,000 to 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, You can do more of the same, so more cataract surgery. So make up that lost revenue bottom line by doing more, making the same. Or you can look at what expenses to cut. Neither one or neither two, neither one or number two are fun, in my opinion. Or number three, that you can figure out, scale and grow in your elective programs. Um, and that's hard, but it's fun. And when I think of again these options that are available, the first two kind of stink. So I'm going to walk through what I think is perhaps a recipe for you to consider.
Let me
Uh,
just stop you there before you go into
yeah,
that kind of next section, Mark, because I think it's worth us talking about one of the things that I feel like is an indictment on our craft is that the slide before, when you're talking about the cuts, if you ask doctors, and I did this in Orlando at the Academy meeting, what's the biggest thing they're worried about over the next, 12, 18 months? Cuts in reimbursement. And yet when you go on the sales floor, industry is talking about how much faster they're going to be able to do cataract surgery and how much more simple it's going to be. It's like, well, if payers are hearing that, which they are, and we know that there's more that are happening, and it just stands to reason that continuum is going to continue to showcase a lower reimbursement. But in some ways, I'm glad. Now, I'm not sadistic. But I just think that it's first line thinking. It's too elementary to think that the biggest threat is a rate cut on something we found to be very efficient and very predictable. Instead, I hope it's something that really inspires us to say, you know what? We should be looking to other things to make our patients happy. We should take a look at our operating system. There's a lot of really happy patients. I know you're going to get into this who have had a premium option that replaces a ton of revenue, like 20 years of cuts. And so I just want to, I don't answer the question of what I'm most fearful about as cuts. What I'm most fearful about is that we don't have team members who want to embrace change. Back to you. You set it up as that, and I like where it's going, but I just wanted to put that out there for discussion or for fodder.
Yeah, well said, Matt. And we'll not that we'll come back full circle to that. I don't know, full circle, half circle, some circle, some portion of the circle. So number one, market assessment. This is something that if you don't do, I'm gonna give you maybe a little bit of framework to do it. And this is really kind of understanding when you think of, okay, if we're gonna build a budget for next year, or our operating plan, what are we running towards, and where do we stand today? And I'm sure everyone has kind of the, current year statistics of, how many encounters you've done, how many surgeries you've had. Maybe you've put together a budget for next year, but what's available to run after?
Hmm.
And a pretty robust like website is on CMS, and I'm going to quick bring it up here. And it's a little overwhelming, but this has all procedure data going back to 2013. So, and it has it for every surgeon, every CPT code built. And you can set up a filter by whatever, code you want to run for, 66984 for cataract surgeries or 66991 for, cat plus MIGS. And what it does, is you can, export it into an Excel workbook. So that's what I did here. And I'll just release all the filters so you can kind of see. And I've got the doctor's names hidden here and some other columns hidden just for real estate purposes. But you can find for cataract surgeries the total beneficiaries that were cared for, and then the number of eyes that were done. So you have comparative information of what is happening in your area. And I for no better reason than it was a low zip code. I picked Portland, Maine. So if anybody is on Portland, Maine, um, I am
Our
not,
buddies at Glacial, if they're on the line, are in Portland.
yeah, well, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just using it for reference. And what I did is I set up some filters here, and if you're familiar with Excel, pretty easy to do. And I just filtered it down by ophthalmology because of co-management. Some optometrists show here, surgery centers show on here, and this is just the doctors. So this gives me kind of comparative information of how many are being done, and I just have a simple subtotal set up here. And this is Medicare, and it's important to understand the data. So what's available out here is the data from Medicare. It doesn't include Medicare Advantage, doesn't include commercial. So, you kind of have to build back into what the total population might be. So in Portland, Maine in 2023, and the 2024 data set should get published in mid 26, but it's at least a point of reference. And at the time, there was about 2,000 cataract surgeries done. And then I just went through and did kind of the top 7 doctors, and I've got formulas set up. And the top 7 represent about 80% of the surgeries. So, Pareto rule. And then what I did, this is another kind of step where on Medicare, you can find out how many people are enrolled in Medicare in the county or the area. And then you can also understand how many are enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan. And you can back into kind of a total Medicare population number. So in Portland, Maine, I would argue that there's probably around, a little over 5,100 Medicare cataract surgery because it's a very high um, enrolled market in Medicare Advantage. Then you add some commercial onto it. 15 to 20% of surgeries are probably through a commercial payer. And we're sniffing at, about 6,400 cataract surgeries that are being done in Portland, Maine. So back to our earlier, chat around by 2030, cataract surgeries are supposed to grow by 50%. Well, and we probably expected a little bit of growth from 23 to now. I would bet that the Portland market might be close to 10,000 surgeries by 2030. So as you think about, the plan to build to the future, this can help kind of get an idea of, what might be coming our way. And
I'm just going to stop you there again, Mark,
yeah,
because
please.
this is such a helpful exercise, and I think that keep in mind things could be different in your marketplace or marketplaces you're looking depending on what you know about your own payer mix. So if you know that you're skewing lower than Medicare age for your cataract or age-related offerings, then you might be, 30 or 40% commercial and 60% federal. And of course that would, you change your assumptions as to the total opportunity in your marketplace. But it's a really helpful exercise. So thanks for going there.
Yeah, and the term I would use, it's an order of magnitude. It's a, it's probably, it's not precise, but it's certainly directional. And you can look at your own data and figure out where you land. And then you can decide, is that where you want to be? Or again, back to the earlier slide of knowing that, growth is coming. What plans are you laying now to capture that?
The
Okay,
the
so
the other thing I'll just mention
yeah,
is that there is it's a great starting point, and yet it's a couple of years old, right? And it's only the federal part of it without Medicare Advantage, and so there's some assumptions you can do to extrapolate, back to decision making, and it is directional. Nice word. There are other places you can buy off-the-shelf data that is more up to the minute, but it's expensive. And MedScout is one. I know a lot of the big industry players use that, but it's got, up to the prior months, actuals of reimbursed work, depending on region and max and all of that stuff. But so there is the point is there's really good information out there at your fingertips to make really good decisions on things like recruitment, things like budgeting, things like forecasting what your premium could be. And so that's a good foray into that next topic here.
yeah. The other is ask your reps. Your reps probably, might give you kind of a sense of, where you stand or what the
Hmm.
market is. Probably won't tell you, competitor information, but it'll say, hey, there's this many being done, and you can kind of see where you land. So, when we build our plans, we first start with our provider forecast, which I fast forwarded this, which is to really understand, we got a practice of, a number of surgeons and how many are we planning to add some over the coming years? Do we have any retirements that are coming? So we start with that, and then we also start with, we've got a couple that are between sites that are, spending portion of their time here and here. So we kind of get an idea of, where demand's coming from, what are our providers that we're planning. Then we, get a sense around where we think our volumes are going to come. And when we look at volumes, we also look up labor hours per appointment. So that's really kind of an efficiency measure of, hey, where am I at today? How much growth might I be able to absorb with the current team? Or, how much do I need to add if I'm planning to grow by, X amount? So this is kind of the equalizer to figure out, how much team we need and letting your HR, or, if you are HR, how many people you got to hire for the coming year. But also, how do you make sure that you're not overhiring too? Pricing, average revenue per appointment is what it boils down to. But I would invite you to, if you haven't looked at your pricing on the elective side for some time and you haven't, gone through a periodic increase, now's the time to do that. And I know Matt and others, or other colleagues on the call can kind of help you think through it. But it has become something that we've systematized where each year we're, planning. It's not that our costs go down. And we know our reimbursements going down on a federal, on a government perspective. So this is the one, lever that we have in pricing. We've got volumes to grow top line. We can do more volume, or we can get paid more for each individual item. But given, we're paid based off of a fee schedule for insurance, the only really lever we have for growing our, pricing variance is through increased pricing.
No, Mark, let's stop there for a
Yeah.
second because I want to talk about pricing. It's such an important conversation, and we've learned over the last 25 years in the refractive space that hey, one way that I think I can build my volume is to just drop price, and that's always been tempting. And I won't ask the question or poll the audience, the lesson's been learned hard and fast in several industries, including our own, which is to do so is a race to the bottom because it's not unique. Your competitor across the street can do the very same thing, and then you can respond to them, and then they can respond to you. There's nothing to stop those kinds of price wars. And for more on this, look to Macy's, Kohl's, and every other department store who's now addicted to sales for their constant, influx of cash. Um, Now that's one thing, and I do think there is price sensitivity, but certainly then in an environment like this, you haven't raised your LASIK price then for over the last 15 years, have you?
Is that a question to me, Matt?
Yeah. And
Uh,
I'm baiting you.
yeah, we have.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into, market by market pricing, but give us a sense of like a range with a couple $100 on either side. What is your range for your laser vision correction offering?
At VTV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think right now we're at 29,950 per eye.
Yeah. Good job at the range part. So 2,700 to 3,200 per
I'm
eye.
precise, Matt. I'm more of a
I know
one.
you can't generalize if you're told to. And then what about on the IOL side, on the premium, the elective part? Because that, as opposed to LASIK, I find that that's still inelastic. And I'll let you explain to our audience watching from home what we mean by that, because I always screwed them up, in college. Like elastic means it should be easy to change.
Yeah.
But price inelasticity is when I'll let you answer.
Well, let me go back. So you're right, our range. I was a little under, I was going off of a little dated pricing. So I'm unfailing, trying to be accurate. But within the range for LASIK that you shared, laser vision. For a refractive cataract, so advanced technology lens, like trifocal LAL, we are at about 4,900. So
Okay.
that's what we charge per eye.
Per eye,
From
in addition to your co-insurance, copay, and deductible.
Yes, yep, that includes co-management. Or
Yep.
I'm sorry, that includes the aftercare fee.
Yep. Got it.
Back to your question around, price elasticity. So if we raise price, does volume go down? That is like, price elasticity, or lower price, does volume go up? From an inelasticity is that if we raise price and volume goes up. And from, a standpoint on the refractive cataract side, we have, graphs that show as we've consistently um, revisited price each year, our refractive cataract volume has continued to grow at a greater rate than our price has. So I believe, though, we've not done a study around it, it sure seems like refractive cataract is less price sensitive than LASIK.
Correct. And yeah, and not correct. I mean, it's a discussion, so neither right or wrong because it could be market by market. But as I talk to practices, and I talk to a lot more of them now than before, I think that what drives price mostly is fear by the leadership team at a practice. But it doesn't have anything to do with market demand. And especially on the implant side of the world where there's a real trigger in getting it done and there's real value that people perceive in the outcome. And so I leave that there as an opportunity to showcase it. I always like to reference Costco or Sam's or Best Buy, who continue to come out with $4,000 to $5,000 screens to put on your walls, and people pay it. And yet, we think they won't with their optical system that they're going to live the rest of their life with. And I just think when taught in a reasonable fashion and given confidence in how to have the conversation, they will make that investment because of the value that they perceive. And just one last segue here, and then I'll let you go back to your slides, Mark. You've got Melissa on the line as well. You and Melissa um, hosted an event for all of the Vance Thompson Vision sites, which is more than 10 people. And your focus last Friday was premium IOL adoption,
Assessment.
getting that confidence from the team, right? Going through all of the rudiments. And so it's not just lip service. it's a commitment to the, gaining that confidence. So I just wanted to showcase that for all of our listeners because it can be frustrating to not see that number move. But then you wonder, boy, I wonder if my front desk is confident talking about it. Um, Chances are they're not, and so they don't, and so there you sit. Okay, so I'll let you get back on track, but it does come back to that plan for 2026, which is to bring your team along, build some goals for advanced technology lenses, and then you're about to go into some capital questions.
Yeah, and I won't dwell on the advanced technology, is what you just shared, Matt. But yeah, the other thing is, how do you invest in capital to make, number one, our labor more efficient? Team has a better experience because we've got better equipment that allows them to work, more, efficiently and, improve their experience. Or that, we also need the equipment for it to be making sure that we get our patients in the end zone for what
Hmm.
they're looking for with their vision goals. Um, so this is, just I think this is where we should stop and have, or not stop.
Okay.
We have the discussion around these. The number one, which you said, Matt, is team culture. Like we can't do this if our team does not believe in this is the best thing for our patients. And how can it not be the best thing for our patients, for our team to be engaged and love coming to work and believe that they're helping our patients achieve their vision goals through the work that they do. So we, spend a lot of time, and like you shared last Friday, an entire, half day plus going through a shared education around the business of, refractive cataract surgery, a little mini session. And it's, it just is kind of nice to have Vance Thompson, who helped create Bricks along with you alongside presenting it. Things that we look internally to measure that is willingness to recommend. We have a willingness to recommend survey on all of our leaders and our doctors. Um, and are we living up to the values that we've set out there? Patient experience, we track Net Promoter Score. Are patients willing to you know rate us as a place that they would recommend to somebody else? And both of those kind of help us kind of be the gauge of culture and patient engagement. Um, and along with that is, our partner optometrists. How are we doing to make their lives easier, that allow them to, take care of their patients, and that we can be, whenever their patients have a surgical need, that we can be the person for it. And, we don't want the referrals just because, we've got a great whatever marketing plan or whatever it is. We want it because we're the best. And we're the best option for their patients from an experience standpoint, and that we're gonna, get them to, achieve their vision goals. So
You mentioned something interesting there.
yeah,
Vance and I are doing this podcast together called Free Range
yeah.
Vision. It's really to try to just capture some of the inspiration that he's pumped into our organization, and I still say our, but over the last 30 years, and because it's contagious, and I want to get that down. On record for the future of ours and other organizations. But last night when we were doing it, by the way, it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Vance. And but he was talking about the seminars, like why the seminars, why is that so important? And we were going back to the basics of the power of an educated patient, right? And that marketing's one thing, even team being excited about it is another thing. But all we really want is that patients truly understand their options and then can make an educated decision. But I mean, it's very frustrating to have a patient back in your office frustrated, or hear from a friend or neighbor that somebody that you had as a patient is frustrated because they didn't even know their options in the first place. Now you mentioned Alcon because of their new technology lenses, and all these companies continue to come out with new ones, and they're going to continue to get better and better. But 2 years ago, they did a study, and I don't remember the name of it, but we can link it on the Practice Habits website that said that 51%, only 51% of patients, when they encountered their cataract consult, knew that there was even an option to have an upgraded lens as part of their cataract surgery. Meaning in the marketplace, half the audience doesn't even know what we're talking about yet. And they won't until they're sitting right in front of that doctor, unless we partner, do a good job of training our team and partner with some folks who are also on this call. So, Mark, first of all, great little overview. It's a nice snapshot of the important dashboards. Let's take the next little while here and take some questions. And as we do, before we do, I'll have some of the first questions come from some friendlies on the line that I know. And Cade and Joel, you work closely with practices all over the country. Joel, you're responsible for pre-education with patients. For those of you who don't know, Joel is the CEO of Navigate Patient Solutions. He's our next webinar, by the way, on January 8th. But he and I have been friends for a long time. Shortly after I joined Vance, like day 3, Joel was one of the first partners and the industry partners I met. And boy, was he surprised I made it as long as I did. And then
Not
Kate,
true. Not true at all.
much more recently, and your whole deal is not necessarily pre-education, but Boost Patients is responsible for lead follow-up, which we all think we're good at. But if you start to look at the data, we're really not. Now, just all disclosures aside, Joel, I have bias and from a participation in that business bias disclosure, I should mention. Cade's, I don't. I just like him, so I'm biased that way. Um,
He's a
but
likable
anyways,
guy.
what you two, we'll start with you. What questions do you have from Mark, or when you encounter CFOs who really know what they're talking about? What are the things that you, one, learn from them, or two, challenge them with so you can bring value to the practice? Because I know that's one of your utmost goals. You're on mute.
Joel, no, I was waiting on
I'm just
Joel.
kidding.
As all I want to do is ask Mark his favorite ultra marathons and then get at least one story about you from college. So I feel like I should let Joel go first because he'll be serious.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the presentation, Mark. It's really good. What we see, especially as you framed it around the declining reimbursement, and I think that so many times people's instinct is to say, okay, I got to cut costs. When I think the most successful practices that we see actually say, how do I invest into this to grow revenue? And so, if you were advising us to talk to people like you, how should we be framing that sort of a conversation with practices?
I'll frame it even more direct, Mark. Are you a cost-cutting organization, or are you a revenue-building organization?
We are, I think, good stewards of the dollars. I would say we are primarily, a growth company.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question, Joel. I think it's one thing, like you can create a spreadsheet that shows kind of the value. I think, I think showing that it's the right thing for the patient is probably, I don't know if every CFO is going to be like, that's going to be the first view, but I think what can we get behind? And I think getting behind that it's the right thing for the patient is hard to argue. And then if the dollars make sense and we've got a team that's willing and sees, what we can, deliver to our patients, to me, how can it not resonate?
Okay, great.
Lucy, I see you unmuted. Was that on accident, or do you have you have a question here for us?
No
You're
question.
muted. No question? Okay, no problem. No problem. And Mark, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with the growth versus cost containment. I just, a lot of times our first impulse is to cut costs, right? When
Yeah.
sometimes we need to invest in things like the training of our team. Friday for you guys was a very expensive day. Zero revenue, all costs above and beyond a regular day. Not a lot of practices make that kind of investment, and you do a lot. And so uh, that kind of investment that's a growth mindset. You can only cost contain your way so far into success. Now, I think you should. You should always be good stewards. It was a nice way you answered that. But I also think that um, we have to have. There's only so many dials. We have to find a way to handle more volume. We have to find a way to be more efficient. And then we have to find a way to increase, revenue alongside it, which is likely going to mean some kind of non-insurance based offering.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions do we have for Mark?
As people are thinking about it, Cade, favorite ultra was Leadville 100. Um, favorite Matt Jensen from college, Hoofda. I think I remember like literally the first day, we had what was called new student orientation. And there is this guy that was just like bananas of so excited. And I
It's
don't
just
recall the
awesome.
specific thing, but it was Matt.
Yeah, and what was his hair like, Mark? Because
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I was just gonna
literally
say,
sounds
was
like
my
his hair was
question.
awesome. The way
Literally
you're
my
describing
question
it,
is
I
like,
imagine
can
him
you
with great
explain
hair.
his hair? Yeah, can you paint a picture for us on what his hair looked like?
I I'm sure there can be a doctored up AI photo of
Yeah,
us, but it was
that's
a
what
little
AI is
spiky,
for.
little spiky. Yeah.
The
That's cool.
I'll put somebody else on the spot because I've got a friend, Tyler Weber, who does the books for a practice that's well respected in their region, and over the last few years has been building some of their very first dashboards, Mark. And you talked about some of the big numbers, but as I've been talking with Ty over the past few weeks, it's what are the most important metrics that you see? Not the ones that are just below the big ones, like within the budget, but like, number of calls, number of consults. What are some of the ratios you're looking for to make decisions from?
Um, so probably so the thing that I do every day is I pull up our um surgeries that we're projecting this month and next month. That's kind of like my daily kind of whenever the data sets update, that's what I go to. And so that's my day-to-day kind of operations. When we're, looking, more periodically, overhead is a number that we're, looking at. But a lot of it, that's a function of, what our advanced technology adoption is and then what our volumes are. So I already know that, December, we're going to be, in a good spot from what we budgeted. And I'll also already have kind of idea of how January is sizing up. So, um, so then that just, takes away, headspace around how the month's going to be because I know it's going to be, a pretty good month, assuming that we don't have a lot of, expenses that are unexpected. We're also a large enough practice where we're on accrual accounting. So, that has advantages because, we, hold inventory, and if we've got a big purchase, it just gives us better clarity into, how the month's going to be. Um, from like a budgeting time of year, we spend a lot of time looking at kind of percentages. So, how many dollars do we have, or what is our percentage of employee salaries and benefits? And, we've really, looked at, hey, if we've got higher labor hours per encounter, and we've got a, higher percent of salaries and benefits, well, we probably have, not as efficient of a team. So we've got too much, dollars that are tied up in too much labor compared to our volume. So we either need to adjust, the hours that we have, or we got to grow. And so those are the things that help us kind of like right size. Um, and so that would probably be, the more zoom out things that we've spent, more time on, and then we'll I don't want to say we don't spend a lot of time on the other expense categories. They just kind of take care of themselves, like rent, occupancy. Those are things that, just not that they're on cruise control, but as long as, we're on this growth, doing more each year. And it's kind of like if you're not growing at 3 to 5% a year, you're losing market share because the whole market is growing by that percentage. If we're going to try to, if the market's going to double or not double, 50% um, in 2030. So if that's, 5 years from now, that is average growth rate of like 6% a year, rule
Yeah.
72. It's probably even higher than that. So if you're
I used to say 7% or so should be our just natural growth plan with the number of new opportunities we get just by existing, unless there's somebody in the market who's taking market share.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yep. That's great. Well, just as an aside, Mark, I love the precision that you brought to the organization, right? When people used to ask me about overhead, I'd say steel, I think that's what it is. Um, I mean, you've put a real, and I joke around, but we've had a really good philosophy about the team culture and the customer experience, the patient customer experience, and it was followed by trying to get really good at the metrics. And the metrics came over time, but that was there was a lot. It was a lot of labor, and it wasn't well, Vance or me. It wasn't our skill set. And you've really brought some scaffolding and some structure to the organization that they really needed to have to scale. And I just think they're so lucky to have you. So. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions for Mark. I'd love to end on time or early. We like these to go between 40 and 50 minutes. I will say this. This is a great session to end the year on, Mark, and I can tell by the way that people are interested in it. And I'd love to have you back sometime, maybe even to go a level deeper into, okay, so what are some of the ratios? Because I think those kinds of things, you rattle them off so quickly, your labor costs per encounter. Um, I'll bet there's 10 or 12 of those that you use to make very good and smart decisions within the organization. I just think slow rolling us on that could be a nice session. The other reason is because I just think it does come back to how to build a healthy business. But the thing I also love is that your questions that people had, or the things we talked about, where I prompted you and kind of led you with an economics or finance question, you to a question answered with a right thing for the patient response. I don't know if anybody else noted that,
Yeah.
but so commendable. Such a good reflection of the doctors and team you work with. And it's a great place to end our discussion today. Now, on January 8th, our session is going to be hosting Glacial Multimedia and Navigate Patient Solutions because they've got a little joint venture going on with some projects going into 2026. It's going to be so fun to learn about. And please ask your friends to come. If you're an administrator or a leader, this is a great place to come and learn and ask questions. If you're somebody on the industry side of things, this is a great place for you to come and drop some knowledge. We want to hear from you as much as we want to hear from our practice leaders. And so thank you for coming. And last but not least, the work we get to do is so redemptive. The nice thing about what I get to do in the practice building and the marketing world is that if people believe the messages that we have, when we invade living rooms and cell phones and cars, and they raise their hand and said, "Yeah, I'll try that." And they go through the process with good people like you, using good products like the ones you offer. When it's all done, if they believe and they act, their life is better. There's not very many places in industry in the world where you get to have that as an offering. Certainly, I was going to hold up my cell phone. Certainly not that one. And so it's commendable. It's a good time of year to take a look at that and just be mindful of it. So thank you for participating, Mark. I love you, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Hey, appreciate you, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.